Welcome back to What If Civilization Restarted. After the World War, people wanted to distance themselves from further violence, leading to the rapid development of Asia that we'll cover in this episode. If you forgot, in the last episode we introduced Fior, Harushia, Moravo, Karnagia, the Kharusan Horde, who is already dead, and Brysavov. There was also a major war that destroyed the ETC. Let's get started. We start with Harushia, who has an annual election for their next leader, but is interrupted by the NPC, which replaces the candidates with pro-NCP puppets to prevent a second war. The Harushians were obviously furious and began revolting, subsequently increasing the NPC's control over the area in order to quiet them. We quickly move to Africa, where Xanador is being harassed by famine. The majority of people seeking refuge from the government move to the capital, resulting in extreme overpopulation. The rest of the country, however, becomes underdeveloped and unpopulated. Just to the south of the dying nation, we see a stark contrast with many tribespeoples in the region becoming incredibly rich off selling their resources to the desperate Xandorian people, who will pay anything for sustenance. Due to this, two new nations are founded by these tribespeople. The first, Nishokia, is founded to the southwest of Xanador, and quickly invades some of their unpopulated land, attempting to make trade quicker. The second, Lurinja, was founded to try and keep trade with the Xandorian stable and even invaded parts of Xanador. After seeing Xanador's weakness, Bertalia conquers land, and soon starts moving to Xanador itself. Seeing this, Malawi invades as well, hoping to take as much territory from the dying nation as possible. Eventually, the four nations meet towards each other and surround Xandor's capital. It's decided that barring a few slight border adjustments in the area of the occupation would be annexed by their occupiers, although interestingly enough, Xandor City was left as an independent buffer state between all four nations as the free city of Xandor. Back in Asia, a group who sought glory decided to leave their hometown of Kaiolaki in Harushia and began a conquest in an attempt to create a grand empire to rule the entire world. The leader was Punith of Kaiolaki, a diplomat who preached glory. Of course, to make sure his name lived through history, he named his creation Punithia after himself, placing the capital in his home of Kaiolaki and proclaiming himself King Punith I. To the west, the Harushians continued to conquer land eastward, stirring up border disputes with Punithia. Some Harushians wanted to escape the hands of the NPC and go to Punithia, but they were caught and expelled to the Himalayas, creating the new nation of Bengatel, where Harushia would often send their prisoners or outcasts. Up north in Brysavov, the nation continues its expansion, leading brothers Prasia and Lavin to leave, founding new countries based on anti-expansionist ideas. They gathered their followers, but became divided on where to settle, leading them to create two nations named after them. In southern China, the tribe of the Apoya conquers the other nearby tribes, creating a much larger tribe that becomes the nation of Apoya. Many other tribes joined voluntarily, because it was a dangerous idea to stand alone against the rapidly expanding Punithia. To the west, Maloria is founded by a large group of tribes uniting under a holy leader named Malor, who believes she is the daughter of a god. In reality, she was just trying to pull the land's people into the modern age and had become desperate. Malor was a firm believer that they should focus internally and not do things such as trade with other nations or be involved with geopolitics. This led them to become isolated. Back in Apoya, the threat of Punithia invading was growing day by day, until one morning an endless wave of soldiers could be seen marching towards them. The Apoyans tried their best to hold off the Grey Army, but were unfortunately pushed back. The Apoyans, now trapped in a few coastal cities, flee and eventually land on a Hainan island, where they could use their advantages on being on an island to defend themselves. Back in Bengatel, they suffer economic struggles and turn to Lavin and Prasia, who take pity on them and help them reform. Together, they sign a treaty, promising to have open borders with each other. Punithia begins expanding into the land between them and Bengatel, thanks to an aggressive king, a move which would eventually lead to his downfall. Around the same time, the Harushians began revolting against the NCP rule. However, they fail countless times and end up having more rights taken away. Brysavov hears of the suppressed people and threatens to send in their army if the Harushians don't gain independence by the next year. They would have made the deadline closer, but they feared going to war with a nation for the first time. NPC spies hear of this and deem Brysavov's threats void of any real action, leading no change being taken. However, Brysavov did convince Prasia and Lavin to sign a treaty to stop trading with Harushians in Kursia. Brysivov later requested that Meloria also sign the treaty, but they refused, creating tensions between Meloria and their neighbors. The NPC, seeing an opportunity to gain more power in Asia, vowed to protect Meloria from Brysivov and Prussia. Meloria accepts membership into the council as long as they got to bring a nation of their choice into the NPC. After a lot of compromising, including having Jandor join the NPC, Jandor becomes the first nation to trade with Meloria. Odenburg, Krosnia, and Azuria were all upset by Jandor joining their ranks, but Fior convinced them that Jandor joining could help further prevent the reformation of the ETC, thus preventing another major war. Back in Asia, Punithia's claims had reached Bengatel, and they began their invasion. Bengatel turned to their westward neighbors, only for Meloria, Prussia, and Lavin to let Bengatel be slaughtered due to the three of them not wanting to be consumed by the growing empire, leading to Bengatel quickly being annexed by Punithia. Under Brysivov's command, the Red Alliance threatens to end Punithia if they touch Prussia or Lavin, only for Punithia to continue their invasion into Prussia and Meloria. Brysivov sends troops to Prussia to help itself, hoping to push back Punithia into Bengatel. Meloria calls out the NPC for help, but is told that NPC is going elsewhere in the war. Jandor steps in and helps defend Meloria's border. Lavin uses the distraction of the war to expand, upsetting many that they were now going against their morals, but Lavin is pardoned after subsequently creating a thriving land. Many Prussians begin to flee into Lavin, only for them to be forced into serfdom, making Lavin the first nation to be able to begin exporting food. With their external help, Prussia and Meloria manage to set up stable boundaries against Punithia. However, they begin doubting how long they can keep the front lines from moving. After the NPC's troops reach Punithia, they invade the capital and begin blitzkrieging across the open land. The NPC threatens to destroy Punithia unless they end all wars and sign a treaty, declaring Punithia cannot go to war with another country for over 20 years. They reluctantly agree, but continue to invade Prussia, deeming it not important to the NPC. The Red Alliance calls out the NPC for not ending the war and uses it as anti-NPC propaganda. A troop of Punithians were tired of fighting and left to find an isolated land where they could leave behind their violent ways. After traveling, they reached modern-day Japan and founded Smealand. Back in the Punithian invasion, after 2 years of constantly fighting with Prussia, the front lines hadn't moved, despite massive casualties on both sides. The people of Punithia were done with war and inflation and started protesting the war. Unfortunately for them, Punith was still a brutal dictator and sent in troops to crush the protesters. Thousands were arrested and shot in brutal massacres. Then came the night. Punith was already asleep, and his son, who sympathized with the protesters, was drinking wine in the palace. Punith II was making a lot of noise in the palace, which eventually woke up the dictator, who came to the wine cellar to try and get his son to quiet down. We'll just say that after that exchange, Punith I had a knife in his back. When the dictator's body was found the next day, the people were filled with joy, as the person who was forcing them to fight was dead. The people flooded the streets with their first sense of joy in many years. A week later, King Punith II was crowned and immediately ended the war. Unfortunately, due to Punith II being a drunk and unreliable, he was a poor leader to say the least. He spent the government's money on himself and gave positions of power to his friends, who were not the most capable. Multiple legions of the military then went on strike due to drastically reduced wages under Punith II. Punith's younger brother then invited him to a gladiatorial event in the nation's capital. Punith II decides to join him, but they weren't there to just watch some fights. Punith II was thrown into the arena, and soon after, his brother, Paika, jumped in and attacked him. It wasn't even a fight, and Paika ended up stabbing his brother 13 times before he died. King Pukia then became King Pukia I of Punithia and immediately fixed all the problems created by his brother. But seeing as the last two kings had lost power due to assassinations, Pukia became paranoid and killed all of his living relatives, including 2 brothers, a sister, and more. That's the end of this episode. Now we have more than one country in Asia, and there are more tensions. So subscribe for more in the future, please. And thanks for watching.